Buen día. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Sharing and Inclusive Cities session. I am Maya Fuster. I am the director of DIMOS at the Open University of Catalonia, and also promoting together with the Barcelona City Council the Sharing City Action Program. This session is framed on the base of the Sharing City Action, which last year celebrated here a summit between 50 cities. And on this base, we are congregated today a debate about how to promote policies on the impact of digital platforms. So the session is going to be around sharing cities, digital platform labor, and urban spaces. Digital platforms and collaborative platforms are disrupting the cities. They refer to a mode of production that is growing exponentially as a way of consumption, exchange, and production supported by a digital platform that is appearing in many different ways. On the one hand, we have platforms like Airbnb, Uber, or Deliveroo, and very different kind of ambits of economical activity, having disruption in the cities, and in some cases also are putting in tension existing labor rights or rights like access to the housing, and cities have something to do with it, are in front of challenges and opportunities. Opportunities also that came from digital platforms that align more with city interests. The case like Wikipedia or Goteo, which is a crowdfunding platform, or Some Mobilitat, which is a platform cooperativist model around mobility. So we are going to discuss today about how far these digital platforms, with their different models, with these disruptions, and also the opportunities for the democratization of the production with these other models could bring challenges and opportunities for the cities, and how cities are reacting to those. As I said, last year in Barcelona, it was celebrated the Sharing Cities Summit, which congregated 50 cities from all around the world, cities like New York, Paris, Seoul, Amsterdam, Kobe, and all these cities which agree last year in a set of principles and commitments on a Sharing City Declaration are together here, has met together again this year in order to present the work that has been doing over the year, and also to push forward more action between them for the realization of the principles of the declaration. The declaration establishes a set of principles. The first one has to do with the importance of differentiation between platforms, the importance of keeping labor rights and assuring that in the transition from the fabric to be the main space of production into the digital platforms as the central ambit of production in this century, that in this transition we don't lose labor rights, but they adapt to the new modalities. Other principle is the question of inclusivity and gender, very central into the digital sphere, in order to assure inclusivity by social background, functionality, and gender. The principle of public protection, the sustainability as a key pillar in this transition, assuring that digital platform also favor a type of circular economy and a type of reduction of environmental impact in the city. Also, preservation of the data sovereignty and the citizens' digital rights. Digital platforms happen in the digital environment, and in this sense, it's important that also cities preserve a set of democratic principles on the digital. The 8th principle refers to city sovereignty as a central question of how far cities can maintain sovereignty over their territory in front of the disruptive impact of this large corporation, and particularly when they don't respect local policies. Again, not only referring to challenges, but also opportunity, and the other principle refers to the economic promotion and the bringing forward policies that favor the scalability of the models that align with cities' objectives and interests. And the last principle referring to the general interest, like referring to preserve that the transition from the fabric to the digital platforms is done in a way that preserve human rights, preserve the right to the city, and in general, the general interest over the cities. As I say, the first principle have to do with the differentiation between models. In this regard, last year, we developed and has been also utilized during this year between the work between the cities, a framework of start of democratic qualities, referring to which are the type of qualities that help us to differentiate between platforms and allow the cities to actually adapt their policy reactions depending on the typology of platform, and also support being able to differentiate them and support the platforms that are more democratic and align more with the city's interests. In this regard, applying this framework of democratic qualities of digital platforms, we have three main dimensions which allow us to differentiate those between models. The first dimension has to do with the democratic governance and the economic model, and how far they favor a governance model over the platform that assure the participation on those who contribute to the value generation or on the decision making regarding the benefits generated. The second dimension has to do with the policy on the technological side and the knowledge policy and the type of data. In this regard, there is very different the type of technology of some of the platforms that are based on free and open source software project and open data, in contrapositions with those who use proprietary software and closed data, which doesn't allow to work with transparency or doesn't allow to collaborate in the development of the technology. The last principle has to do with the impact and in terms of value generation and the social responsibility regarding the externalities. So on the base of these three principles, the governance, the technological policies, and the impact and the social responsibility, we can see that there are certain models that are characterized as commons-oriented or more open-oriented, or platform cooperatives that are cooperatives behind the platforms. That is the case, for example, of Fermondo, which is a kind of an eBay of exchange of products over a platform, or a Smart IB, which is a platform cooperative between freelance and the cultural sectors, in which these type of modalities favor more democratic governance, a type of technology and knowledge policy that is based on open knowledge and favor transparency and technological sovereignty and control, and are more socially responsible regarding their impacts into the cities. These type of models are very different from those which are more extractionist or more unicorn-based, which have a more closed down governance, not involving the communities, has a proprietary kind of software and closed data access modalities, and are creating disruptive impact into the cities, putting in crisis certain historical rights and not respecting local regulations. And there are much more than this. There are a lot of hybrid models, but these help us to orientate a bit between the different typologies of platforms. Now I would like to give the floor to Ricard Spell and Melissa Renau. Both are researchers from the Plus project. It's a European project which addresses how far the digital platforms are transforming the labor, and how far policies from cities can adapt to the transformation of labor by digital platforms and how to adapt the welfare state into this process. Unfortunately, Sandro Mesadra, which was is the principal investigation of the Plus project, couldn't join us because he is ill. He excused his non-participation. But Ricard Espelt and Melissa Renau will provide the insights from the Plus project for today's discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayo. Well, as Mayo said, the Plus project is a project funded by Horizon 2020 program. These are the partners of the project. As you can see, there are some institutions regarding to research, and there are 3 main pilots who are going to test, or they are going to test the results of the project. One of the pilots is Airbnb, an alternative of Airbnb. The other one is Katuma, the local chapter of the Open Food Network. That is an agroecology consumption platform to provide food sources to consumers. And finally, a Smart, that it's a cooperative platform focused on culture and arts. The Plus project has started this year, and it's addressed to the main features of platform economies, impact on work, welfare, and social protection through a groundbreaking transurban approach. The project dips in 4 disruptive platform sectors: the taxi services, the network hospitality business, the urban food delivery, and on-demand home services and caring, focusing on the impact of 4 platforms: Airbnb, Deliveroo, Helpling, and Uber. 7 cities participate in the project: Barcelona, Berlin, Bologna, Lisbon, London, and Paris, and Tallinn, sorry. Today, we will have the opportunity to dialogue with 3 of the political representatives of 3 of the cities: Barcelona, Berlin, and Bologna. Another interesting of this project is that the framework of the project conceptualizes the socio-economical approach, the political approach, the historical action research that it's performed in this field, because the idea is to create a framework that takes in consideration these different disciplines. For this reason, I think the debate could be very rich with the political representative of each city. The research that we are going to explain now is performed by Dimon's group. It is an EN3 Internet Interdisciplinary Institute of the Open University of Catalonia. This is a group that our mission of the group is fostering socioeconomic innovation through our research, methodological experimentation, and action for a commons-oriented society. For this reason, Plus project dips in our field of research. Mayo told just before about the Sharing Cities Star, or the star of democratic qualities that the Sharing Star provides. At the same time, he had referred to the principles of the Declaration of Sharing Cities, and for our research, we tried to build this framework to dialogue between the Sharing Star with the principles of the Declaration and also with Sustainable Development Goals. We have some conclusions about this that could be very interesting to explore during also the debate, because some the insights are that the Sustainable Development Goals are embedded mainly in the impact of responsibility dimensions and governance. But there is a lack of connections with especially with the digital characters of the data, for example, or the technological policies. This is something that works better with the connections with the principles of the Declaration. As we can see, there are a good connection between Sustainable Development Goals and the Sharing Cities Declaration, and for this reason, we think that the Sustainability Star sharing declaration in a step forward for shifting a sharing economy forwards for the Sustainable Development Goals. This is something that we are working during the project. Melissa is going to present the results that we have been working.
Hi to all of you. So basically, I'm going to explain a little bit the research of demons currently in the PLUS project. So what we are doing now, we are doing a research about different 60 platforms in this sector. So taxi services, network hospitality business, urban food delivery, and on-demand home services and caring. And what we are doing, here we include in the sample of the 60 cases the main platforms. So we include, for example, Uber, Airbnb, we include Couchsurfing, the main platforms that you can imagine, so Helpling, the ones that are in the main cities of the world. But we also include different platforms. We include smaller platforms and also platforms that are based in cooperativist models and try to promote a different type of platform economy, so more fairer, etc. We take 60 cases of these ones, and then we did 20 structured interviews with with different cases. In these 20 structured interviews, half of them were cooperativist models. So they are basically already trying to promote a fairer platform economy and to promote better values in this sense. So what do we have here? So we have basically that from the 60 cases, 44 of them are for-profit platforms, so they want to earn money. But we also see that we have other type of businesses, other type of organizations that try to use platforms and try to have an impact on the digital economy. And we also wanted to study them in order to differentiate the different models that are appearing in the platform economy ecosystem and the different models of labor that we can find inside. So I'm just going to give you some data about our first results in order to also to stimulate the debate and to see what is happening, what kind of labor do we have, which differentiators there are cooperatives really being different from for-profit models, or what's happening? I would like to highlight that we have here, in the sample, we included a lot of alternative platforms that are trying to promote a fair platform economy, but we also, and these are the four, I think, best examples that we can give in each of the sectors. Why? For example, Cotavo is a taxi services platform cooperative now, but it was a cooperative, I think that it started like in the 1967 or something like this. And it's a platform that, of course, there were traditional taxi drivers. So they didn't, for example, they didn't know how to use Facebook or how to start Googling and being like really inside of the digital economy. And what they did in order to take advantage of the digitalization of the economy is to build a platform. And they are already like they are giving education to each of the workers that are there, and they are owners of the platform. So they are constantly thinking how it is built, the data policies that are integrated in the platform, the governance of the platform, etc. Airbnb is also a good example in the network hospitality business because apart from being an alternative to Airbnb, so apart from providing bedrooms or providing spaces for people to sleep, they also want to be a funding space for projects. So they want people that are participating in the platform to choose with the part of the money that they are giving to it, part of the income, to choose which models, alternative models, will they like to fund. So, for example, if someday it's very important to start a financing projects alternative or something, and the members consider that it is important to provide funding for it, then Airbnb will be a space to carry out this. CoopCycle, it's also an interesting initiative because it's a federation of cooperatives that are united basically because they want to ask for better laboral conditions in the food delivery sector. But in concrete, the CoopCycle is providing them the digital tool in order to do not have to produce like constantly a different platform for each cooperative, which is really expensive. We know that producing apps is expensive. So they produce an equal app, a general app, and each of them uses it. And at the same time, it's a network where each of the cooperatives is talking with each other. They decide about the governance. They decide about the data policies. They decide, for example, they are also performing, taking courses in order to know how to, for example, deliver things more in a safety way. Basic things that in the for-profit platform economy, it's not happening. And lastly, Suara is also an interesting case because it's a traditional cooperative that has a really huge, long background here in Catalonia. But they are also trying to start digitalizing themselves. And it's very important because it's already a cooperative that has like 4,000 workers, more or less. More of them it's in the caring sector, so they are providing services for the elderly. And what they want to do now is, okay, we have this really long-standing cooperatives that it's working, so how we can do something cooperative platformized, right? So trying to trespass this model to the platform economy. So this is, I think there are interesting cases. And here, from the 20 interviews that we performed, we have that, so you could say, okay, if half of them are cooperatives, half of them should also have all the workers should be the owners, right, of the platform, because basically that's what cooperatives do. But we don't have this case, and we have that some of them are federations, so some of the members are not workers, are not owners of the legal entity. But however, they are trying to promote it, and they have like a mixed model, but they are trying to so we have like 6 cases that we can study of workers' ownership. Okay. Also, another important thing is the governance model. So how, for example, the platforms by themselves are providing spaces for organization for workers. So in which terms they are providing fair working rights, etc. It's very interesting because we find that for-profit platforms, very big, I cannot say the names because of anonymity reasons, but I'm sure that you can imagine some of them, tell us that they are providing spaces for workers in order to organize. And these are platforms that the workers by themselves are being organized because they want to ask for fairer rights. And this is very interesting because we see that these platforms, they see this as a disadvantage for them. Instead of thinking that this is an advantage in order to promote fair working conditions in the platform economy and in general in the economy, they see it as something negative. And in what they want to do, their aim is to remove this part of the platform. So they are, when you interview them, they are saying, okay, how we can remove this in order to not have problems with law, you know? I want to have told my employees as self-employees, so I don't want to have any problem. And I don't want to provide any spaces for meeting between careers and in the streets. I don't want anything of this. Because basically, for this reason, it's very important, platform cooperatives, because by themselves, they are already organizing workforce, and they are already, by this main fact of starting an alternative, they are already promoting fairer working conditions. Because, for example, here we have in Barcelona a very known alternative that it's called Mensacas. Mensacas is a platform cooperative that basically it was built, I think, that 3 years ago from the different the workers that were working for Deliveroo, Glovo, etc., they decided to start an alternative, to start something that was co-owned by them and to start fostering better working conditions. And they started this business model that it's completely different, and they are still in the beginning, but they are already using a platform. And which platform they are using? So they are using CoopCycle platforms. So we see that it's very important, the connections between each of the cooperativist models and the cooperative economy. Regarding the juridical status of the workers, so we know that in paid employment, are attached to traditional social safety net models. We see that we have really few platforms there. Just 3 of them can claim themselves that they are in paid employment. So this is a really big number. I mean, this means that also platform cooperatives are not able to produce paid employment figures to promote paid employment. And most of them are in mixed models. So they are in between the two models. They regard on self-employment workforce, but they also regard on paid employment workforce. And what does it happen? It happens because they cannot afford the fact of paid employment. Sometimes they are competing in the same market as the other ones. So they are competing with regulations that maybe are not promoting really working rights in the whole platform economy. So they find themselves thinking, okay, we want to promote better working conditions, and they are in the way of saying, okay, we want to be in paid employment, but at the same time we find that we have to do it like in a flexible way. We have to compete in the market, and it's very difficult to compete with the same conditions being fair. So that's why we need also new regulations, because if we want to promote better alternatives and better platforms, and we need also to compete in the same terms. And this means also improving working rights for everyone. Another interesting data is the salary over When we asked them if they were providing a salary over the minimum wage per hour, just 6 of the platforms were able to say that yes, they are doing it for all of the workers. We see that in this sense, precarization of the platform economy goes beyond for-profit platforms, and also it's in the middle of the cooperatives economy. So here, we really need a push from public administrations in order to improve the situation and to really foster alternative models and better working conditions. Another interesting topic that I'm sure everyone interested is it's about flexibility. So what's really happening, right? Who is choosing, who is deciding how many hours they are working, and also the decision, no? Because they claim to be flexible, to promoting flexibility, but they are maybe not really doing it. So what happened here? We see that, of course, platforms claim, most of the for-profit platforms, claim that they are being flexible, that they really, the collaborators, in this sense, that's the name used, are completely free of choosing the time schedule that they are working on. But when you ask them, okay, what's the negotiation? So this is happening, right? It's a negotiation. So every time that the worker gets inside an app, if he has more power, if the courier has more power, then he will be able to choose a better time schedule, better working conditions, etc. So in this sense, the fact that we have here 5 platforms that claim that they are negotiating with workers, this needs to take into account that this means that this is a negotiation based on power. So if workers are we are not helping them, giving them better working rights, and law is not helping them, then they cannot ask for better working rights. It's that simple as this. They don't have the power. And we also find that the 5 platforms are doing it in a negotiated way, and 2 platforms are doing it from the platform perspective. So the platform really chooses how many hours are they working. So just 4 platforms of the 20 platforms that we interviewed where really the producer was really choosing how many hours they were working on the schedule. And most of them were cooperative platforms. So what are the conclusions of this? Basically, there are different models in the platform economy. That's what basically Mayo said before, and we have to take them into account. We have to take them into account from in each of the panels, so we have to stop talking every day about Airbnb and Uber, which are, of course, they have a huge impact, but we also have to start thinking about other alternatives that are also taking place, and that are starting to promote different conditions. In this sense, it's very important then to understand that each of these platforms has also different working conditions for the workers, and they are competing in a context. So in this context of competition, we need the same rules for everyone. No? We need everyone to be following the same rules in order to promote the working conditions and then start competing in a fair way. That's why I think that we can conclude that public funding and the role of governments, it's very important. If we really need to find an agreement, a global agreement about labor rights, what kind of digital rights do we want in this society, we need to think to reach an agreement between, for example, Europe. We need to reach an agreement about, because another thing that we find is that, for example, platforms have like different models. They go to Barcelona and they, for example, they have self-employed, but then they go to Berlin and they are all employees. This cannot happen. We have to find a model that they can also, for the benefit of the platforms, but also for the benefit of cities, of saying, okay, these are the rules, these are the working rights that you have to promote, that's basic human rights, and then to start competing, no? Because if then it's not really fair. So I hope I have given some interesting data for the panel now, and I will just like to invite you to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Please. Yes, please. Katalin, it's a pleasure for us to present this debate. No, it's the same presentation. Sorry. No, Katalin, you can hear. Say, and Alvaro, please.
So we are missing chairs, right? Ens falten cadires, no?
Yes. Como queráis, sí. Ok. Pero sentaros, sí. Well, yes, thank you. As I mentioned before, it's a great opportunity today to have the opportunity to focus our research and to dialogue with three of the plus policymakers of the three of the main cities. We have the opportunity to speak with Álvaro Porro, Commissioner for Social and Solidarity Economy and Local Development and Consumption of Barcelona City Council, Katalin Gemburg, elected member of Berlin House of Representatives, and Matteo Lapore, the Deputy Mayor of for Culture, City Promotion and Civic Imagination of the Comune di Bologna. Well, we are going to divide the debate in 4 parts. The first one is more focused about the impact of digital economy. We want to understand better how digital economy is impacting in your cities in terms of gentrification, of labor, and these type of issues that Melissa has also mentioned during her presentation. The second part is about more regulation, taxation, these type of things. Sometimes the cities' responsibilities don't have the possibility to regulate this, and this maybe that it's something that could be part of the debate. The third part of the debate will be focused on the governance, on the local structure of local political structure to manage this. This means how each city is managing the construction of an alternative, which type of actors participate in this. Local organizations, research, business, alternative business, how is managed this conversation into the cities. And finally, we are going to focus on the construction of network. Sharing Cities Action is a good possibility. It's a real possibility for the construction of networks among the cities. And we are interested to see how you see this opportunity and how to manage this. Then feel free to participate as you want. It's an open debate, an informal debate. The idea is that you can dialogue among us and create a rich debate. The first question is focused on which type of impacts is platform economy doing in your cities.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here on this stage with Barcelona and Berlin. Especially with Barcelona, we signed an agreement together to work on many of these issues. and with Berlin we are in many European projects, so we share best practices in our Europe, and I think it's important. It's important because our cities are in global trends, and we have critical issues, especially in Bologna. I think it's important to contextualize our experience and our situation. Bologna is a city of 400,000 people in the heart of Italy. We have a long tradition of cooperative movement, a strong welfare and education system, a very diversified economy. So Bologna is a strong city in the history of our country. And in the last 10 years, we saw the crisis. We started from the 3% of unemployment rate. We arrived to 10%, and now we are 4% of unemployment rate. During this journey, we saw that, for example, we achieve a new result about unemployment, but we arrive with a different rate about, for example, poor workers, young people and migrants especially. During these 10 years, especially young people lost 20% of the per capita average. And I think platforms are involved in this new way of organize jobs in our cities. Not only platforms, because not only the platform are the critical aspect of this new economy system. For example, also public procurement. In the last 10 years in Italy, we did a great spending review, and the spending review cuts a lot of public spending at the regional and the urban level. And all the services organized, especially in Emilia-Romagna region, my region, and in Bologna, are managed by cooperative, the old traditional way to do cooperativism in our country. Big services company organized by cooperative. And especially in the services sector, we lost a lot of richness for the workers. So I think the spending review, public spending review, platform organization owned by private sector, and public procurement not reformed, I think they have in the last 10 years did not well to the welfare and in general the life of our citizens in Bologna and many other cities in our continent. So if I have to say the impact of platform is a bad impact if we see the social aspect, an opportunity for the future if we are able to organize also the city as a platform. And I think it's one of the topics of our debate. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you for the invitation and your research, because we are really in a deep need of this research, and for political action we really need to know what's going on in the platform economy. In Berlin the situation is we are since 30 years a no more divided city. And the situation is changed a lot since during the last 30 years due to the financialization of housing and the situation of the rents, and all this made a big impact on the housing crisis and what has to do with our problem with Airbnb. So what I want to add is that since 2016, I think, the discourse around Airbnb changed a lot in our city. Before there was the understanding of Airbnb as a nice thing to have, no problem. And since then the discourse changed a lot, because all the other cities that are here connected did the same to do protection against this kind of liberalization of the housing market. And what we see is that the precarization, as you said in your speech, the precarization has a lot to do with this platformization. So there's a lot of things to say about Airbnb, what is the same in Barcelona and Bologna and Berlin. But I want to add that there is one thing we really have to think about if it comes to Airbnb. We have to think about that Airbnb is or creates an economical digital landscape that needs the urban situation, the urban density and the urban situation of housing. And it, as well, it creates a new economical urban landscape that has to do with nice places, the places to be, like living in Kreuzberg is very expensive, and so on. And the third thing is a new economical data landscape, and that all together brings big power to this platform. And we really have to think about what comes next for the classic enterprises. If we talk about the classical industrial enterprises, this might be a very left German view on this problem, because if we talk about classical industrial labor, we talk about Siemens, for example, we have to think what's going on with these big enterprises and how they want to platformatize their labor as well. And this is what I want to, what I'm very interested in, because we now face a new Siemens campus in Berlin. And what, as far as we know now, they transform their company there the more for startups, platforms, and so on. And this is what I'm really interested in, because this has a lot to do with labor and classic labor.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us in Barcelona for this conversation and for this congress. I pretty much agree with what you both said, and I think our three cities are suffering more or less similar impacts. Although, for example, I normally heard really nice stories about the housing situation in Berlin compared to Barcelona. So for us, probably the situation is even worse in a lot of senses. And also your unemployment rates are kind of very low for our standards. But on the essence, I think we have the same kind of challenges. If I have to talk concretely about the impacts of platform economy in Barcelona, I would speak about like kind of three waves, which it doesn't mean that each wave is finished for the second one to start. So normally the three waves are already active. The first one was related with the housing market and related mostly with Airbnb and vacational rental platforms. As you said, it was exactly the same here. At the beginning, it seems to be like very innovative and very trendy and even kind of nice thing. But kind of soon, we start seeing that the impacts were far more deeper than that. That was not about home exchange or couch surfing. That was a completely different thing. And the risk of growth, exponential growth and the economic impact on the housing market was completely different from other kinds of truly collaborative models. That brings us to a kind of very tense situation. We managed to make agreements with other platforms, but with Airbnb, since a short time ago, it was impossible. Basically, they knew they have a lot of power, negotiation power. And they were not fulfilling our necessities or our local laws. That something has changed, and we probably will go in the second block on that. But that was basically one of the first learnings we had, is like, we really need to stand. Cities, we really need to stand up if we really want to protect our sovereignty and protect the rights of our citizens in front of the arrival of these platforms. Of course, not everybody's awards are negative impacts, but we really need to stand when we detect these negative impacts, and we can see that we have them. There's a big debate in Spain whether it's affecting or not the price in the housing market, and probably it's one of these academic debates where you cannot really isolate one variable, but it's the fact that you have, where they are more active is where you have more pressure on prices. It's not a coincidence at all. Of course, it's not the only reason, but it's definitely one of the reasons to put pressure on the housing market. Then we have the mobility wave, which in some way was at the same time, and that's been having a debate that has gone over the borders of cities. And in this case, for example, we also have the same learning. We need to stand up in front of the arrival of platforms. We're trying to enter in services that were already regulatory, like taxi system. And we have the same learning. Until we stand, there was not a change in the attitude. And that's a direct experience where I have had with Uber, that they have to really change their attitude after we stand up as a city. And now the new wave is labor. It's a difficult situation because cities, we have a lot less legal capabilities in terms of managing with labor situations. But that we have that really affecting now food delivery, but it's entering other sectors like caring sector, and of course other professional activities. Basically, our approach is like we have to defend sovereignty of cities. We are there because we need to protect the rights of the cities. The cities are the landscape for a lot of the economic activities, and that's a good thing, but that has also a lot of potential risks, and we have to be taking care of that. But we always want to have two important ideas in the way we face that. One is not everything is the same, and I think the introduction we just have, I think, is being very inspiring in this sense. That's one of the big mistakes we can commit as public administrations if we think every platform model is the same. We have to be able to differentiate one model from the other. There are platform initiatives that are truly based on collaborative models that are very good news for our cities and could help really much facing challenges related to ecological transition, related to inequality, related to innovation, that could be very helpful. And I invite you to, for example, come to other activities we have in the Sharing Cities Stand Lab, where we are presenting a lot of these best practices, base cases. So one thing is differentiate things. Not everything is the same. And the other thing is a challenge and opportunity approach from cities. When there is a challenge, in the mobility market, in the housing market, let's first be the first one to stand up and protect our rights and our sovereignty. But also, when there is an opportunity, be the first one to promote it. And I think that's not easy to find this equilibrium, but that's what we are looking for, and we are trying to get the point, let's say, to get the equilibrium.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Just to interact,
yeah.
No? I'm really agree with Alvaro that not all the situations are the same. In my first speech, I mentioned only my warning point was on the jobs. I didn't mention, for example, housing and Airbnb. For two reasons. Mainly because Berlin and Barcelona are really different compared to Bologna. No, our landscape and urban areas is really different. But for another reason, also because we have the 70% of the residents of our city owner of the houses, and because we have 6% of the houses in our city owned by the public. So the problem of Airbnb we are starting now to have is because of the tourism, obviously, but in a different context compared to Berlin and Barcelona. This is the reason why, for example, we decide to regulate in a different way the city center and to promote, for example, hosting in different area of the city and metropolitan area. So the Airbnb, the example mentioned in the research in the European project, and a different use of the platform, a relationship with the platform, I think could be important if we know the social context of our city and if we have leverage also at national level and European level. If we want to work together in a lobby of international level, I think we have to create new tools for the mayors, for the urban government to be flexible, to be fit on what we need for our city?
I would like to deep in the regulation. The debate has moved to the regulation directly. Current laws fits properly with the challenge of platform economy. It seems that there is some challenge to work on it. I would like to deep in this, and I would like to think also in the possibilities that regulation could be a nice possibility for alternative platforms also. If you want to deep in the things that you are doing regarding to provide solutions to this lack of responsibilities regarding your public policies competence, could be nice.
Yeah, maybe I say something more about the regulation and then come to the other kinds of regulation and to spendings on cooperation, on co-op platforms, platform co-ops. I mean, we have one law in Berlin concerning the Airbnb thing to where it is prohibited to use houses for things that are not housing. That means you cannot use houses for short-time rentals if you are not allowed to. You are also not allowed to keep your houses empty and as well to break it up. So this is a law to save housing. And if we talk about how does it work, we have to talk about the data, and we have to talk about European possibilities to regulation of platforms. And then we see very clearly that we all on our own have own ideas and own regulation in our cities, but in general we have all the same need of a European-wide regulation that gives us something in the back. So this shows, yeah, what's going on with the platform situation and so on. If it comes then to the labor question, like with the Deliveroo situation, we learned a lot from Bologna and especially from Bologna, because you have this fight for better labor situation and also I think the first platform cooperation. Now there is, after the last Deliveroo crash in Berlin, the workers said, okay, they want to reorganize themselves, and we are now discussing about giving a public spending on this cooperation. I think, yeah, this is really helpful, but in general, it will probably not help the whole problem to solve, because if we see, and this is what I want to add today, if we look at the European Commission and what we are facing now, then we see that the e-commerce directive will be renewed probably in the next, in the first quarter of the next year. And then we can clearly see that the European Commission probably will deepen the possibilities of platforms to get more money out of the market. And this really has to be confronted from all the cities in Europe. And we really have to work on the question, how can we stop this idea of, the e-commerce directive should be more open for platforms, and what the cities need to be backed by the e-commerce directive and the European Commission.
Thank you. About the regulatory situation here in Barcelona, basically the legal frame was quite clear. You need to have a license to have a vacational rental flat. And basically that was what it was not fulfilling in the websites, in the platforms. As I said at the beginning, we managed to make agreements with different platforms, except for Airbnb. And honestly, until we start a real battle in terms of finding and putting fines on these illegal activities. Some kind of detective work of having to prove that this was happening, because that's the problem we have all the time, that it's not easy to legally prove all that. It's been a very intense process, which we have to put a lot of energy and a lot of resources, but we've managed to find a different landfill, a different context for negotiating, and we managed finally to make an agreement, which I think is looking at the agreements that has happened in other cities. I think it's one of the agreements that has some kind of balance between the two actors. And we are finally achieving that Airbnb has take off the website a lot of these announcements of flats that were not fulfilling the legal necessities. That's happening in a city like Barcelona, where tourism is bringing a lot of good things and is one of the main economic activities of the cities, but at the same time is bringing a lot of challenges. And there is definitely, the city council is definitely into ordering the touristic market. Otherwise, we will end up having a lot of negative influence for the city and also for the touristic sector itself. So now the situation is we have this agreement, more or less it's been respected, although it's an ongoing process, and I don't think we are in the let's say in the place where we need to be. And for that, as I agree with what you said, we need to have probably cities alliances to get together. To some point, especially in the terms of access to data and other ways of respecting the laws. If we look at other sectors like mobility, we have been working on the metropolitan level and also on the Catalan level. This will be a bit long story to explain, but now we are also in a crucial moment of whether should be a legal binding way of differentiating Uber and Cabify activities from the taxi activity in real terms. And this has to be with the time of pre-contracting of the service. And the third one is that now, as I said, the third wave is labor rights. Here, in this case, cities has very, very, very little legal capability. So we are much more expecting for a national clarification of the situation. Right now, the battle is on court, and you can find in small scale judges different judgments with contradictory meanings. So it's not really clear exactly where it's going. And probably is going to need a kind of more legislative clarification of the situation. But basically, the big debate is whether the legal framework needs some kind of updating or revision for the situation, or whether this is not necessary. We already have a legal framework which already is enough to deal with these situations. And basically, in a lot of cases, platforms are using a figure that is not really the case. It's autonomous or kind of freelance, I think is the translation into English. And we are all expecting what is going to be the situation, because otherwise the let's say a confusing situation, which at the end of the day is going against the rights of workers, is kind of making bigger and bigger. And for the regulatory situation, that will be more or less the summary of the main ideas. But as I think we talk in the next block, definitely for us the learning is we need cities to get together. We need to have more power of negotiation going together, and we need international frameworks that protects our sovereignty. Otherwise, in a bilateral relation, it's going to be quite unbalanced and quite difficult.
Yeah, we are effectively in a lack of regulation and policy at national level and European level. So I used to say that in this situation, the best resistance is the creation, what we can do in the city. And I would like to share with you some examples. The first one is the declaration about digital jobs that we signed approximately 2 years ago in Bologna. We did it after some rally and strikes of independent union, the Riders Union in Bologna. We have in Bologna about 500 riders for food delivery in the platforms. And after many meetings with these people, we decided to propose to the private platform a declaration, an agreement. We prefer an agreement, but we obtain a declaration about values, about principles, about labeling, quality labeling of the platform, about insurance, about minimum wages. And we obtain two signed by the seven sisters of the private platform in our city. It's interesting that in Bologna we have a startup called Sgnam, owned now by the main menu. They have about half of the riders in the city, and it has been important to have a Bolognese platform owned by a company born in our city, because we had the relationship with these people, not only with the people in the United States, the owner, the real owner. The real owner in the case of Niam was, they were two young people of 30 years old, born in Bologna, and helped some years before by the municipality to create a startups. And they have been the first sign on the declaration. So a good example, an open road to the protocol, the declaration that we use with the unions at national level, and now the national government is approving a new law about, for example, riders and this kind of work, this kind of jobs in our country. The second example is Kotabo. They mentioned before, Melissa mentioned before the example of Kotabo. Is the first digital and cooperative platform to manage the taxi system in a city, developed with a Spain partnership. It's interesting because in Bologna we don't have Uber. So Uber didn't arrive yet in our city. And I think there are two reasons. This digital cooperative platform and our mobility law. The law that decides, for example, the city center is not open for some kind of cars and pollution. So I think is a good example how we can organize the city before it's too late. The third example is the UNESCO decree I mentioned before for the city center. Starting this August for 3 years, it's not possible in our city center to open new bars, new mini market, and new restaurants. It's possible only with the agreement of the municipality. So we stopped the liberalization of commerce in our city center for 3 years, and now we are studying to use this decreto also for the Airbnb. We are trying to use it. It's not sure we can do, but we want. I mentioned these 3 examples. And in the future, I think with the cities, we can work on big data. With Barcelona now, we are in other European cities, for example, we are an European project about big data and computing. In Bologna now, we have the 70% of the computing power of the all Italy. And with this new project, we'll arrive at 90%. How we can use this power of computing and this big data ownership to have a new democratic way for all the issues we discuss now, and how the ownership of big data and computing capacity is a tool to promote new organization, new platforms, new way of do enterprises and cooperation. I think is an example of we can resist creating something from the bottom, producing maybe in the future some policies or some new regulations.
Thank you, Matteo, again. To move the debate to the creation of an alternative, I would like to know more about how Barcelona is managing this, the creation of an alternative, and also Berlin.
Okay, so as I said at the beginning, we have this double approach of challenge and opportunity. When we were talking about regulations, of course, we were talking about more the challenging part of it. But I think it's very important that cities we don't get like let's say kidnapped in a kind of defensive attitude. And I know in an economic fair like today, it's not very sexy to talk only about regulations. No, we have to see that there is a lot of opportunities with the digital economy, with the platform economy. As far as we are able to have legal frameworks, clear legal frameworks, which are good for the rights of the citizens, but also good for the economic activity, because they make a clear market situation. So we are doing a lot of, I think, positive things in terms of promoting platforms when we think they could have a positive interest, a positive impact in our cities. Apart from this declaration we signed last year among 50 cities, I think one of these rooms also, and this international alliance, I think we will talk at the end. In more local terms, one of the things, for example, we've been doing for already 3-4 years is La Comunificadora. It's a project or entrepreneurs support intensive program that we are running from the local development agency to support new projects of new platform projects of collaborative or sharing economy that we consider they fulfill some criteria that make them a model that is more likely to have positive impacts in the city. For example, today in the afternoon I have the visit of like 15 managers of big departments of the city council that they want to get to know about sharing economy. What are the opportunities that could bring to the areas they are working? For example, the local company that is local public company that is managing parkings or transport system or other kinds of public facilities. How do they can benefit from all that? And I would like to introduce them, for example, a platform that has been going through our supporting program, which is about how to reuse computer equipments. It's called e-reuse. And we already have different agreements with municipality and with some public companies, so they could reuse all these computing materials after it's been used in our offices. That's, for example, that's just an example. Or we are like supporting a mobility cooperative. It's called a platform cooperative called Som Mobilitat, which is working just with non-emissions vehicles, electric vehicles, in a model where the users are owners of the platforms and owners of the vehicles, which has been very much growing in the rural area, but it's now starting in the city, and that could bring opportunities also for mobility for public administration, for public officials, for different kinds of options. We've been also supporting the creation of alternatives by the workers that have been working in these platforms, that they have realized the situation they have in terms of rights. And for example, there is a very interesting initiative that is happening in Barcelona. It's called Mensacas, where workers from food delivery platforms that were on strike defending their rights has trying to create now a cooperative. So they own the platform themselves. They are the members of the cooperative. They have an application. They work in the same way, but they now manage their own situation, their own legal conditions. And from the municipality, we are being supported in different ways the rising of a project like this. Or for example, we have been hosting meetings of different worker groups of different parts of Europe, so they can organize in the European level to defend their right in this new kind of trade union context of the 21st century. So I'm just giving examples of how from a city, not just in terms of defensive aspects, but in terms of promoting the good opportunities and the definite the positive models we could push forward. And of course, we have a long path to walk still. But I think we have some experiences in Barcelona that could be a good example.
Yeah, this is like the main point, what you said. I mean, we are looking at what you do. In Berlin, we don't even have a data strategy yet. We don't even have a digitalization strategy yet. So I think this says a lot about the situation in general if we talk about how to confront this new forms of labor, these new forms of the market. So let me add, I would say, promoting the good ideas, and let's do some networking. But in general, still we have the question how to confront like the federal politics. In Germany, we have a right-wing minister for mobility that promotes to open the market for Uber. That brings a big problem to Berlin and to Munich and Frankfurt and all the bigger cities. So how to protect ourselves in confrontation to the federal politics, this is a big question we have to think about. And as well, I also spoke about the European situation. I have not a lot of hope concerning this situation, and I really want to know what you think about the upcoming situation with the e-commerce directive and what you expect from it. And I mean, no question that it's absolutely necessary and good to have own project on the local level, the municipal level. But if the EU Commission confronts Berlin saying your regulations on housing are too strict and you have to put it away, then of course we have a problem. So we have to speak about the European level and the liberalization on the European level, and what we have to do next to the very important point that we have to have our own project to promote platform co-ops and so on.
Yeah, it's a very political question, and we are politicians, so we can answer, no? Because especially during this conference, we usually don't talk about politics, and I think the vision about politics is so important in this situation. Obviously, all these aspects about platform we discuss are not technical. They are really, really political, and they are part of a neoliberal vision of the economy that we decided all together because we are in the same world many, many years ago. Probably in Europe, we lost the opportunity to organize in a different way our European vision at the end of the last century and at the beginning of this century, when we had many, many movements about globalization, about the alternatives. And we didn't use this opportunity to create a new vision about what on the left side and the progressive side we can do to organize in an alternative way our economy, our countries. I think we choose the liberal vision, and there is no alternative now. Probably we are paying this mistake, and this is the reason why now all or many European countries now are voting on the right and the sovereignist and the populist way, because the social impact of the vision, the neoliberal vision, arrive directly to the people. If we have poor workers, for example, in our city, with an unemployment rate of 4%, there is something wrong. No? For example, the Constitution, the Italian Constitution, of the first article, have this sentence: no, the Italian Republic is founded on jobs. But where is the dignity? You can work, but you don't have dignity. If you work and you don't have dignity, why you have to work and live with your family in a European or Italian city? I think we have to return back to ask us some important questions. And if we do that, I think we can, for example, looking an alternative way. Brexit, for example, or what we are discussing in Italy about the possibility that, for example, the sovereignist parties arrive to the government of the country by migrants, the fear about migrants, and so on. The situation in France with the yellow jackets, or what you are tackling in Germany about rights. No, all the countries are in a mess about the political situation, and we are not able to discuss what Europe could be for new in a progressive way. So I think if we want to be on the important issue, we have to create an alliance with cities, because cities are on the issues. And now, beyond the issues is so important, because the social aspect in the economy regulation now become another, again, really important. The liberalization of the economy arrive now at the end. This is the reason why we have a cut spending on public procurement. This is the reason why we have cut on welfare system. This is the reason why we discuss in an hour about a new way of organizing jobs. The platform, the private platform, is an answer about these 20 years of political vision and organization of the economy. This is my opinion, and probably and I finish with that, could be very important to compare our situation to China and to Russia and United States. Is a geopolitical war about all that. Why, for example, in China and Russia is not possible to open a private platform, for example, on social network? No? So why the confrontation between these areas are now so important again? It's a new Cold War, and it's about economy, and is about the life of the people in the cities.
We are in the end of the debate. We have 8 minutes to finish. When we have deep in the political debate, we identify some of the main issues of how it makes sense to build Sharing Cities Action Alliance among the cities. Some European regulation issues, the difficulty to the negotiation with platforms, the lack of competence of the political municipalities, the difficulty to take control of the data sovereignty, and at the same time the needs to create more inclusion with the platforms, or how to scale this alternative. Please, can you focus in the last minutes in which will be the aims of this alliance among the cities, please?
Okay, 8 minutes. Taking a bit the floor that Matteo says about the role of cities in all this historical and political big context. I really believe that cities are now one of the key changing actors in the world context, and you can see that cities are where a lot of the most innovative social and environmental policies are happening. And if you compare in general national governments with big cities governments, you see a lot of different perspectives in a lot of senses. So I have a lot of hope in the role of cities, and we could see that in a lot of different themes, not just in platform economy. We have a structural problem because there is where the regulations has to be made is not where let's say where they leave the impacts in a more direct way, and this is very evident in the case of platform economy. But at the same time, I have a lot of hope, and maybe it's because also our mayor has been playing a very important role in international arena. And the fact last week was declared like the representative of cities in front of the UN. I think UN ecosystem has every time more and more clear that the role of cities is very necessary, because sometimes UN, which is sometimes is the most progressive international organization among the big international organizations, is finding themselves very, very weak and very alone in terms of some of the changes that we have to face, for example, climate change. So I could share a lot of the, let's say, the more hopeless analysis or assessment of that Mateo and Katalin said. But at the same time, I want to share this optimistic perspective about the role of cities, and it's something I'm experiencing every day in local terms and also in international terms. And definitely, I will put two big goals for this alliance of cities, sharing cities. And in fact, we have different meetings today and tomorrow in order to work on that. So it's something very, very concrete we are doing. First is how we can negotiate together with platforms. I think it's not the same if 15, 20 cities go to a negotiation table and we establish a standard protocol about how to respect the legal local framework. And to say that if you don't fulfill this respect to this city sovereignty, it's not you are going to have a problem with one city, but you're going to have a problem with 20 cities, which maybe means 50% of your market. For example, in terms of Airbnb. That's one thing. And the other thing is, as you said, how we can influence together, especially the European framework, which, although there is a lot of democratic and political difficulties, as Mateo says, but there still is, it could be very much useful than other international frameworks. And we could really, if we could really influence and create a frame that is really taking into account the impacts on cities, I think that's going to be a completely different playground for the future. So for me, that will be the two main goals. And also, because this double approach of challenge and opportunity, how we can make our local projects to collaborate, to exchange, how projects that are being good practices in your cities could come here and explain what you're doing, and the other way around. How we can make, because we need the alternative to scale up. We cannot be talking all the time about really small projects in a very local dimension, which that's good for the beginning, but especially in some of the sectors, we need scale up. And that's the only way I think we could do that is with international collaboration and maybe a kind of federal integration of platforms which you can use in different countries, but they share a lot of elements, like, for example, these riders that are organizing themselves, they are sharing the application and the software, so they don't have to create each one their own application.
Yeah, I can just say, I mean, meetings like this, or maybe later the coffee break, we already learned a lot from especially Barcelona and the an alternative way of digitalization that is not the classical smart city blah blah, just consuming technical schnick-schnack. And yeah, I mean, we already learned a lot. For me, for the network, this is like an important alternative network. As far as I understood, Berlin is not already a part of the network, so I will go for asking to bring Berlin into the network. And promote the idea of sharing cities as well as solidarity cities as a solidarity network as well, because the sharing ideology is not solidarity at all. So yeah, let's stabilize common goals and push things forward for solidarity.
I'm agree.
Thank you very much for your contributions to enrich the debate during the whole time. And let's go to move forward to the next step of the panel.
I will just make this announcement. I really encourage you to visit the stand, the lab stand of Sharing Cities near the Barcelona Council stand, where you will see with your own eyes and get deeper on a lot of the topics we just briefly mentioned today in this talk.
Yeah, for example, this afternoon we are going to have a debate with the 3 pilots that are participating in this Plus project, with Airbnb, Katuma, and Smart. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. So we are going to start the second part of the session. So this morning we have been, in the first part of the session, we have been talking about current data regarding the research on the impact of digital platforms. Then, mainly through the Plus project, then we have had a very interesting debate between Barcelona, Berlin, and Bologna regarding the reactions of cities about digital platforms and which type of policies and which type of analysis and understanding of the situation. And something that has emerged very clearly from the 3 cities is the importance of collaboration between cities. And this is going to be the goal of this part of the session, to present you the key insights about what's happening regarding collaboration between cities in the ambit of digital platforms. And first I'm going to present the experience of Sharing City Action. Then we are going to have the presentation of the European Cities Network on short-term holiday rental by Albert Eftin of the city of Amsterdam. And then Murray Cox from inside Airbnb is going to provide insights regarding if it would be possible a negotiation with platforms and about current data policies and strategies with a focus on short-term rental tourism by cities. So I will start. As I said before, this session it's happening following last year's Sharing City Summit that took place here in Barcelona, in which it was established a Sharing City Action Taskforce. This Sharing City Action Taskforce, it's a program for support the development of common views and collaboration between cities. It departed from the signing of a common declaration last year by 50 cities, but now there are 70 cities involved. And the goal is together exchange experiences, but more than that, develop common actions regarding the challenges and opportunities of the digital platforms. Everything actually started in Amsterdam in 2016, when Amsterdam took the lead and invited 12 cities at the very high political level, because it involved vice-mayor level of political action in order to together exchange views about the situation regarding the possibilities of and the potential of sharing for platforms and the impact and challenges of digital platforms. So we met in Amsterdam 2016. Then the cities also met in New York the following year with 22 cities that participated again at a very important level, because this is actually an issue that is very much in the agenda of cities. And last year, Finally, it was the Sharing Cities Summit here in the framework, actually, of the Smart City Expo World Congress just one day before, and also it was introduced this track of the Congress in which we are part of. And in the Sharing City Summit in Barcelona last year, 50 cities came, and out of all these years of working together, we can say that it was make the step of signing a common declaration between cities about the type of principles and possible commitments and principles and commitments by cities to preserve in a sharing city and to confront the opportunities and challenges of the platform economy. It was also set up by the Barcelona City Council a program to support collaborations between actions in order to perform the principles of the declaration, because the principles of the declaration that I have presented previously are very important, are very central, and the cities share this. But make a declaration is not enough. It's just only the first step. So during all this year, through the Sharing City Taskforce program supported by the Barcelona City Council, together the Open University of Barcelona, which I am part of, in this kind of joint action between a government institution and a knowledge institution with the university, we have been supporting exchange and work together between cities. Out of it, this year, in the context of the Smart City Expo World Congress this year, we had another encounter between cities, which is not a summit as such, but a more working focused encounter, in which there has been involved almost 30 cities, has sent representatives to meet again here and to establish new goals for the coming year. And also not only cities, but from a quadruple helix involving other actors of the ecosystem. There has came 150 actors of the sharing ecosystem to be business platforms, or to be universities and research centers, or European projects involved, or civil society. These 150 actors are involved in the Sharing Cities Town Lab, which is the Sharing Cities Town Lab is part of the Expo. It has 3 days of program of activities, debates, hackathons, co-creation sessions. The center of the is just in front of the Barcelona City Council one, and the Sharing Cities Town Lab depart from the key idea of promoting sustainability and inclusive platforms to achieve cities' goals, referring to the principles of the declaration, but also global goals, referring to the global sustainability goals of the 2030 agenda of the United Nations. The program is centered around a set of key ambits of the declaration. One is regarding the labor part and the discussions about future of work and possible models. The second one is about inclusion, gender, bringing feminists to the platform economy, which is very necessary, and bring the knowledge and expertise of feminist economy into the table, because actually platform economy performed very badly regarding inclusion, particularly gender inclusion. So it's a key element and a principle of the declaration. Also regarding sustainability and how to confront the climate change challenge, and regarding data. These are the main issues of work this year. To sum up the main things that have happened from the signing of the declaration last year to now, I would highlight first the creation of communication infrastructure between the cities. In the sense of now, there is the 70 cities that are participating of the exchange of information between them about what they are doing, what worry them, what are the main steps that are being done at the European level, for example. And this is already like a step of making sure that cities has identified contacts in each of the city about who is working on this issue and have regular exchange. The second element is that we have been doing during this year is trying to project and favor the development of common views by cities. There has been many steps in this, but one I would have liked is that the support to the definition of the opinion of the European Commission of Regions and Cities, which this year the European Commission of Regions and Cities, which is a European Union institution regarding cities and regions at the European level. So this year, this institution has made the opinion of cities on the issue of platform economy, and this has been led by Vienna City. And Vienna City has involved the cities in order to extract a common view, and we have been facilitating this in order to provide the vision of the cities in Europe in front of this institution, but also the European Commission. As Berlin has pointed out previously, the e-commerce reform might bring a lot of necessity of bringing a unified voice by cities into the discussion about the e-commerce issue. But there are also other elements by which to have a common view, common voice at the European level become extremely important. Now that Barcelona is going to, the mayor of Barcelona is going to be representing the cities at the United Nations, here it opened another opportunity of also bringing a common voice and or a shared voice of cities at the European Union, at the United Nations, and address global goals. Other type of action and a strategy that we have been performing in Sharing City Action during this year, it has been developing action research, bringing high-level top expertise for the cities, or in order to systematize the knowledge about issues, or create new knowledge through research, and generate knowledge that is useful for the cities to understand the situation. One of the things that we have been doing is a survey to the cities in order to provide an overview of the current state of public policies on the sharing economy. In this, we did a sample, we did a survey to the cities, and for example, just now we know that these are the key areas of policies by cities. So what cities have been doing regarding platform economy? They have been doing mainly these elements. The main thing they have been doing is promoting innovation. That has been their reaction. Then we have observed that a small city and big city does not react equally in the ambit. Bigger cities tend to be more focused regarding the regulation of disruptive impact, and small cities tend to be more worried about improving environment and inclusion goals. We have also been empowering cities regarding transmitting the work of the short vacational rental network of city and the work they are doing on lobby that later on Albert Einstein will present. Also developing the study with inside Airbnb in order to make more to get to know better about the current situation of the strategies by cities. Also collaboration with the Corporate European Observatory, and developing technopolitical tools for the cities to share data and share tools that are useful for them in this field. We have been also moving forward regarding how to connect the principles of democratic qualities at platform level with the principles of the declaration, with the global sustainable goals, and see how to connect global agenda with a city-level agenda in this field. And with this, I would like to give the floor. I'm extremely happy to give the floor to Albert, and that you get to know the work that they are doing.
Okay. Let's first see how I have to go to the next sheet. I don't see a presentation yet. Okay. And how to go for the beginning? Well, let's start with the beginning. As you can see, Amsterdam, bicycles, very misty, very grim beginning of what at first looked to be a very friendly new development in the digital world. Platforms, and I will not mention only once Airbnb, but we now talk about platforms. And that's very essential because we don't want to be, cities don't want to be an anti-Airbnb combination or network. We talk about the digital revolution in platforms, in housing platforms, who have had their effects on the housing market, and not only positive effects. And when it all started in 2012, it seemed to be a nice little puppy. But it turned out to be a Danish dog. And there's nothing wrong with a Danish dog, but it's not very handy if you live in a small apartment. So we had to do something. And so when it all started in November 2016 in conference in Barcelona, Mayo already told us, that was the first beginning of, well, we should do something about this special digital revolution when it comes to housing. And we have had, after that, we have had a conference in Amsterdam, which was especially focused on enforcing on housing, on the platforms and the effects they had on the housing situation, on the housing market, and on the livability of neighborhoods. Amsterdam and also Barcelona in those days were already stepping up the enforcement, which is very important because it's very easy to make a policy. It's a lot more difficult to enforce a policy, certainly when it's about tens of thousands of listings in your city. And in January 2018 in Amsterdam, we also concluded that we had to address the European Commission directly, because we did not hear much about the European Commission, except for that platforms and digital revolution was so good and that it was very innovative, etc. Yes, it is innovative, and I must say that the kids in the smart kids in Silicon Valley did their job, and they did it quite good. And as authorities now, we have to give a very smart answer. So we decided to write a letter to the European Commissioner, to Ms. Bieńkowska of the Internal Market, but she reacted that we first have to talk with our officials, with our staff, to point everything out and to make more specific what our demands were and what our questions were. Well, we have done that in very good talks with the European Commission, with our colleagues, very open talks, so nothing wrong with that. But we did not get a political meeting with Ms. Bieńkowska. It was very obvious that she was not very engaged yet. Let's put it that way. But Ms. Bieńkowska is out in a few weeks, and we now wait for the new European Commission, and we have also the new European Parliament since last summer. So we think that it really starts a good moment to again step up our efforts to reach the European Commission and the European Parliament. What are our goals? Well, and now I'm talking about the goals of the European network on short-term holiday rental. We will seek to work together to get to influence the European Commission and the European Parliament to provide the cities with the tools to combat the negative effects of short-term holiday rental, and these are also legal tools. And we work working together to learn from each other. It's also a very practical network, like learning about scraping data, for example, and learning how we can enforce best, and what tricks and tips we have on the way to better organize our efforts to keep housing, short-term holiday rental at an exceptional level, or not keeping it on an exceptional level, but getting it on an exceptional level. Because in many cities it already went too far. Well, you may want to know, Albert, which cities are part of your network? Well, here they are. The cities with an asterisk were the first one in 2017, but you see that a lot of cities later joined. And last year we had the pleasure to see Bologna, Florence of Italy, and Athens of Greece, and finally also Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic. So it's now spreading, and it's not only big cities but also smaller cities. But because you should not forget that. Oh, it's here on 0 minutes, so I have to rush. But I thought I had 10 minutes. But it also on a small scale, a city like Bordeaux, for instance, have 10,000 listings, but it's not a very big city. So the influence of short-term holiday rental on smaller cities can be very big also. Our demands are, when we go to the European Commissions, platforms should cooperate with registration schemes, not on a voluntary basis. They should not obstruct enforcement or make it impossible in practice. They should cooperate with social housing companies, and they should make their host pay tax. It must be based on the law and not, so, as I said, on voluntary agreements. They can be quite handy, but in the end we want to have agreements or a law with all platforms and not with just the ones who are willing to make an agreement with us. Very important directives we have to deal with are the e-commerce directive or the new Digital Service Act. It was already spoken about. It's very important. It will be changed this year or in the coming year, and it's very important to be in the European Commission with all people who want to change it at this moment. So we have to cooperate it with different organizations like I've mentioned here a few, not only the Smart Cities Taskforce, but also Eurocities, the Committee of the Regions. Clemens Hippel was here from Vienna, who made an opinion from the Committee of the Regions to the European Commission with their demands, their questions about the Digital Services Act, and Housing Europe, the organization of housing companies. And we, as the network on holiday rental platforms, we focus on housing market and livability of neighborhoods. But there, of course, are lots of other organizations and platforms who deal with other aspects, like we have talked about this morning, labor, etc. And it's very important to have now and then discussions in a more integrated, more complex section, and not only on just a small focus of housing. There are also questions about what can we do, can we have a common strategy on dealing with housing platforms. It's difficult. I think that our 4 demands I already mentioned could be the bottom line, and let's say all cooperate and all endorse and spread a common political statement. There will be a political statement in a few months, in January I think, and then we have a meeting in Brussels with, I hope, also the Euro Commissioner and members of the European Parliament, and then we will go on and try to get the next step. Keep informing each other and negotiating with platforms together, that's an open question. Okay, so far, happy end. As you can see, the sun is shining already, and thank you very much.
Do I have time?
Yeah, me too. I think it's not the...
Okay. Do I have 5 minutes?
Yes, 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Hi, welcome everyone. I'll be quick. My name is Murray Cox. I'm a data activist and founder of Inside Airbnb. I collect data on Airbnb. Before this project, I acted as a researcher. I collaborated with the Sharing Cities Action Network to try and find out from the cities that were involved in the broader network some common actions focused on 3 different research questions about data, negotiations, and collaboration. We sent the survey out to more than 60 different cities, 20 participated, and we also had follow-up interviews with 6 of them. It was mainly Euro-focused. It would have been better if it was a little bit broader, but there was participation from cities in North America as well, San Francisco and Montreal. As a basis to understand the frameworks in each city, their priorities, we asked the cities about their policy objectives. By far, the highest priority policy objectives were about preserving housing affordability and availability, and the second was taxes. It's been a lot of focus in the news in the last couple of weeks about party houses in short-term accommodations. Again, these weren't policy objectives amongst the cities, so housing availability and affordability and taxes. When we asked cities about what were the barriers that they were finding in terms of achieving their policy objectives and ensuring compliance, they mentioned access to data and also the lack of addresses in data. So I'm only going to summarize what the research told us about the data strategies, negotiation, and collaboration opportunities, but we'll be talking with cities about the research in more detail and releasing a report about the research. But in terms of data strategies, we found that cities were using data to inform their policy and create policy, to create political and public awareness, to create political capital. Also, proving that regulation was in a common interest, that regulation was required, and then also helping with compliance and enforcement. There was a public short-term rental data is available through projects like myself inside Airbnb. There's commercial operators, and also cities are scraping the platforms themselves, and also collaborating with each other, so providing expertise amongst the cities with scraping technology. Also, in a few key cases, cities have been able to get data from the platforms. In the case of San Francisco, the platforms are required to provide data to the cities. And there are some new French laws that cities like Paris and Bordeaux are expecting to be able to use in the next month. And so we have to see what's going to happen, whether the platforms will provide data. But these could become models for cities to be able to demand access to data, not just for taxes, but also for compliance. In terms of negotiation strategies, most cities failed with their negotiations with platforms, except in the cases of taxes. In the case of taxes, 8 out of 13 cities were able to negotiate tax agreements or to regulate tax agreements. The cities recommended, they basically recommended regulation over negotiation. And in the case of the European Union, joining networks like the European Network for Short-Term Rentals to lobby the EU. So the collaboration strategies were regional cooperation, sharing expertise. For example, Barcelona has become an expert in the Catalonia region and other parts of Spain. Vienna is providing scraping technology to other German-speaking cities, and so there's more potential for that. There's also the French cities collaborated to create national laws. The EU lobbying that Albert mentioned, and also sharing resources, so scraping technology, data reports. A clear majority of cities wanted data and wanted data reports. And then also collaborating on regulations, which regulations were effective. I hope I provided a little bit of guidance to cities, what cities are thinking about in terms of data, negotiation, and collaboration. So thank you.
Oh, we didn't. Okay, we have some time for debate. No? We have to finish? Okay. So we don't have time to debate. I would like to thank you to both the presentations, and also thank you all of you and the participation in the whole session. And I would invite you to come to the Sharing Cities Stand Lab just in front of the Barcelona City Council one, in which we are going to keep having the debate and having activities during today and also tomorrow. So see you there.